Hello, traders, and welcome to this week's episode of a breakdown on different pairs and the weekly outlook on these pairs as well. So today we're going to be taking a look at the Dixie, the Euro USD, the Usdjpy, the gold, and Gbp, Gbpjpy. So let's get started on the DXY. So we see the close of the weekly candle. There's a bit of indecision at this point. So if we scale down a bit, we're actually going to see a break of the daily swing structure, which was a weekly change of character. So we see this break of structure, and I'm really interested in this demand zone right here, where price kind of bought off of. So what we could see is, seeing as there's been a change of character on the daily time frame, which is sort of like a break of structure on the 4-hour, and seeing this really nice impulse to the downside, I would say that the Dixie could potentially sell off of this supply zone after having mitigated the order block that we see. So we could potentially see the Dixie sell into this zone before we see a buy, or potentially into this zone before we see, right? Before we see a move to the upside, which could potentially target these highs, right? So that's pretty much all for the Dixie. Just to recap, we're looking for potential sells. So I'm looking for potential sells into any of these zones, but ultimately, I expect the Dixie to buy and target new highs. So ultimately, I am bullish on the Dixie. Okay, so that's all for the DXY. Moving on. Let's take a quick look at the Euro USD. So we see that the Euro USD is still massively bearish, and this is in direct inverse correlation to the Dixie, which I'll be treating in a different video, where I'll be doing a breakdown of the DXY, how to look at it, and how to work with correlations as confirmation bias, and how to, make sure that you're not too caught up looking for bias confirmations all the time, how to still separate these pairs from the DXY and treat them as individual pairs, because at the end of the day, that's really what they are, right? So let's scale down to the daily time frame. So on the daily time frame, see this really nice break of structure, right? It actually is a change of character on the daily time frame, which indicates that we could be getting ready for a deep pullback, right? So after this change of character happened, so this massive sell-off into this demand zone, and we've seen this mitigation happen. So potentially what I'm looking for from the Euro USD is for it to buy potentially into this zone and mitigate, and then we could see a continuation to the downside, creating newer lower lows. So that's pretty much it for the Euro USD. Short term, I would be looking for sells, and again, we could potentially see a reaction off of this zone. If you scale down to the 4-hour, we can see that this is a little supply zone in its own right. So that's pretty much the weekly outlook for the Euro USD. Let's moving on. Right, moving on to the Usdjpy. As we all know, this has a really positive correlation with the Dixie. We can see that it has been bullish. It has been on a bullish run for a really long time. And like I told you guys last week, don't look for sells. I mean, look for a sell when it makes sense, but mostly short-term sell scalps. Don't look for sells and don't look to hold on to sells because the momentum is to the upside, right? Don't try to trade against the momentum, just trade the continuation. So that's right. I am bullish on Usdjpy, and what I'm seeing here, it looks like there's been a massive sweep of liquidity all around this area, right? So we've seen this massive liquidity sweep. Just put that right there. And then almost immediately, we're looking at a change of character on the 4-hour. So this could be a sign that the Euro USD is potentially going to target this high and create a new high. So I'm ultimately bullish on the USDJPY. I would not be looking for sells at all. But it's also noteworthy that there was a lot of impulse to the downside at this point. So just like the Dixie, and this is in no way a point of reference, but just like the Dixie, we could see a reaction of this. We could see a mitigation into any one of these zones, and then we could see a continuation to the upside. So these are some of the zones that I'm currently seeing on the 4-hour right now. You could always scale down to the 1-hour, find more zones, get your entry, and get a good buy, right? In terms of entries and refining your entry points and your POIs and how to get those really nice entries, really good risk to reward. Those are topics that I mostly handle on my mentorship channel. Sorry, my mentorship group. Sorry. So it wouldn't be fair to my mentees to put all that out there. But yeah, essentially, this is the outlook for this week on USDJPY. So moving forward. Right, so let's take a quick look at gold. I'm just going to start from the daily time frame. Oh, you know what? Let's take a look at the weekly time frame. So on gold, wow, this is really interesting because on the one hand, I see this mitigation here at this point after having seen a good amount of inducement. Again, terms like inducement, how to identify them, all of that. I won't really go into detail on all of that here because again, that would not be fair. Right, so we see this massive sell to the downside on the weekly, but at the same time, we have seen a mitigation at this point. So what we could potentially be looking at is for gold to, it's for gold to buy into one of these zones, potentially this zone or this zone, and then we could see a continuation to the downside, which could potentially target new lows, right? So some of these zones are really cool zones of interest. I'm just going to mark out a few of them that I see. Again, we could see gold not go much higher because I'm already seeing a mitigation at this point. I'm seeing this impulse to the downside, and if we scale down to the lower time frame, we can see that this is potentially just a retest happening where price is filling up this fair value gap, right? So once price is done filling up this gap and is done taking all the sell side liquidity from this zone, we could see a massive sell-off from this point. So we might not even see price go higher, like I said before, right? So potentially what we're really looking at is price could potentially at this point just continue to sell. So from this point, we could be looking at price to, go lower, target already existing lows and create even lower lows on gold. So that's pretty much the outlook on gold, where I'm bearish on gold, and I think come Monday, come Tuesday, we will start to see like sell opportunities just right off the start of the week. So that's something we could look at. Then for the GBP JPY, this is looking really nice and bullish because at this point, I'm seeing this massive sweep of all the liquidity here, and it's mitigated this zone right here. It's tapped into this zone, which is really interesting to me. So from this zone, from this supply zone right here, because this is a supply zone on a lower time frame, we've seen an immediate change of character, right? After the liquidity sweep. So we've seen the change. Actually, we've seen a change of character here. And I wouldn't say a break of structure just yet because price didn't finish. The candle didn't close above this high, so I wouldn't attribute this. Yeah, so we've seen a change of character, and again, we've seen price sweep all of this liquidity, and we've seen price basically tap into this demand zone right here, and we've seen another change of character. So I'm really bullish on the GBP JPY. What we could potentially be looking at is just a retest, basically, maybe into this breakup block right here, and then we could see price buy and target creating new highs, right? So that's essentially all for the GBP JPY. Let's move along. Okay, so that's all for that's the video right there, guys. So again, please leave your comments down below, your suggestions. If you'd like to see any pair added to the list, please let me know down below. Please subscribe to this channel. Like I said last week, I will be dropping these weekly outlooks on a weekly basis. And I will also be dropping free content from the mentorship group, from my course, which is still being developed. I will be dropping free content, free knowledge, explanations on concepts such as liquidity. I will be teaching interesting things like how to trade small accounts, how to flip, all yada, 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 all that basically. So do follow me, guys, and turn on post notifications if you want to keep up to date on all my posts. So that's all. I wish everyone here a really great trading week. Let's get this bread. Cheers, guys.